Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be talking about the transit south node conjunct one's natal Mercury. Now, when you're talking about the south node in transit, it can reflect what we're going away from. And the thing about this is the fact that we're talking about Mercury. This could be going away from communications. It could be siblings. Sadly, in some cases, it could be the passing of a sibling or a cousin or a neighbor. It could also be one of these people that maybe you haven't spoken with in some time, maybe coming back that might have been part of your past and is now reconnecting or rekindling some connection with you. In some cases, it could also be going away from, sadly, from rational thinking in some cases as well. And thing about this is keep in mind that Mercury is also associated with one's eyesight, and it can indicate some issues with the eyes in some cases. When you have somebody has this transit, it could be going away from seeing to some degree. I mean, if you have this, like say in Pisces, it could be connected with somewhat blurry vision, where things are just really very unclear and nebulous as far as your eyesight goes and seeing things. Mercury is also about mobility. Some cases, this could indicate some limitation in one's mobility through local transportation. It may not. It could manifest in not getting that ride you used to have to go to the local store. Maybe it's through walking to a certain place where there's some issues, where there's some limitations, physically, as far as getting from point A to point B, whether it might be, in your legs or something. Now, Mercury is not connected with the legs, but it is associated with mobility, so it can be issues associated with mobility, whatever it may be, that might be prohibiting you from, getting around in the same manner you did previously. And the thing is to keep in mind that the South Node, Mercury in astrology is also associated with the arms, the hands, and breathing as well. And the thing about this is something where, as far as in isolated cases, it can be something surgical, even a removal of a hand in some cases, which would be very rare and isolated. But because South Node energy is what we're going away from. But a lot of times when you have a transit with the South Node, it can affect the astrological energy it's hitting to its detriment. And that could be something with the arms, the hands, or the breathing. But on a positive note, if you're having this transit and you are having some breathing difficulties prior to the transit, it might be going away from that issue, and it makes, especially I would say in the separating conjunction aspect, when it's actually leaving, when it's in separating aspect, conjunction aspect to the south node, that could be a breathing issue that might be dissipating at that particular time. Say if it was in Taurus, it could be one that's rather persistent and stubborn that is actually going away. So the transits of the South Node are not always necessarily negative, because sometimes I see this as manifesting in going away from an adverse or negative issue associated with the planet Mercury. Now, the thing with me, on April 29th, 1992, to talk about example of me, transit South Node made a conjunction to my natal Mercury in Cancer, and talk about the exact conjunction. Now, the thing about this is, I think how I can't really remember anything that was really overly significant that had occurred with me during that transit, but it seems like around that time, near that time, there were issues with short journeys and local transportation that may have been limited. And I was actually riding a bicycle at the time, and if I remember right, that was near a period where I had to start riding my bicycle to get to places that were much further away than ordinarily I was accustomed than they were ordinarily for me. I had to ride my bicycle to further distance because I had to go to certain places to be at that were further away from my home than ordinarily. And keep in mind, the zodiac sign Cancer is associated with the home, interestingly enough, and it kind of took me out of that comfort zone. Remember, the zodiac sign Cancer is also about what we feel at home with, what we feel most comfortable with. So it was kind of going away from those short journeys, I would say, that were more comfortable and that I felt at home with previously, because they were more time consuming and longer distances. I had to ride the bicycle at that time. And another thing, too, sometimes when you have, this transit can be going away, from the rational, thinking. So people, if you're having, like, if something's happened in your life, and say, you're experiencing something devastating or traumatic in your life, and when you see this transit coming, just be careful, because sometimes this could manifest in going away from rational thinking, because Mercury is connected with rational thinking, and of course the South Node is what we're going away from. So it's just something, to take precautions at this time, and especially if you've been traumatized somehow and you experienced something very devastating. If there was, if you were involved in an assault situation, or had been attacked, or you dealt with some kind of death in your life, if this transit falls in the 8th house, it could very well be tied in to a passing of somebody. And remember, the 8th house is also the house of crisis as well. And another thing, we talk about an example of somebody. Now, the thing about it is, you're looking at, there was a situation that something took place. I believe he passed on September 28th, 2020. He was a college basketball player named Chad Dorrell. He died. And the thing about it is, part of the reason this made a lot of news was because of the improbability associated with his passing. And he was reportedly very healthy, where he didn't seem like he seemed like somebody that could not succumb to something like this, being in such nearly, I guess, flawless health, lack of a better word. And he died at that time of neurological complications that were associated with the coronavirus. At this time, transit South Node in Sagittarius made a conjunction to his natal Mercury at the time. And the thing about it is, or at least a loose conjunction to it at the time, and at this time, this may have manifested in attacking his brain, and the brain, of course, is associated with Mercury, and triggered and activated perhaps neurological disorder, something and nerves, something with the nerves, and neurological disorder and nerves can be associated with Mercury. He apparently had some rare neurological disorder, and this COVID-19 had likely done something that had activated it or triggered it at that point in time. Interestingly enough, the transit Neptune in Pisces, Neptune can be about diseases. Pisces can be about ones that can't be eradicated or cured. He had this at least making a loose square to his natal Mercury at the time as well. So it's not surprising that this was something, given that the aspect was adversarial, that might have done something to trigger that situation, sadly. And the thing is, when you look at this, and he had recently at that time too, the transit actually hit his sun, I believe, sun in Sagittarius shortly before this. And when you have the transit South Node hitting your sun, that can be going away from life, sadly. And in his case, being something sports related, and something where he is a life that was very happy and jovial, I'm sure, and one where he expressed a lot of athletic ability, and one that was filled with sports. I mean, he was a college basketball player. He may have been involved in other sports on a recreational level. That I don't know, but anyway. And another thing too is that when you look at this as well, I thought it was interesting. Or just when I saw this, not when I saw this, when I thought about this transit, it reminded me and made me think of a situation with a prominent family member. And there was a prominent family member that was complaining, I would say almost compulsively, if that If that makes sense. It's complaining incessantly about having a sore arm. And I thought it was interesting around mid-March of 1990, the transit south node was conjunct his Mercury, was at least exact or close to an exact conjunction to it in mid-March of 1990. And that was a time, it seemed like near that time, where the pain that he was complaining about started to dissipate. Keep in mind that that Mercury can be associated with the arms, and the fact this was in Leo, this complaining was done in a very loud, vociferous manner. I mean, he was talking about it constantly, on and off constantly, and maybe he might have dramatized this a little bit more than it needed to be, given it was in Leo. He kept complaining, saying he had a sore arm, and incorporating sore arm into a sentence, and like I can't get the door, but it was something, I don't remember exactly what he would say, but it would be something like, I'm having trouble opening this door because of my sore arm, and he would be emphasizing that. And around this time is when it seemed like that the pain was, subsiding a lot. So I think that's how it might have manifested and pan out, that he was going away from issues with the arm at the time. So anyway, another thing too is that sometimes this could be, I mean, as I believe I stated before, it could be about going away from a neighbor, could be leaving a sibling or a cousin or one passing sadly. This could also be about someone maybe from your early education or neighbor reconnecting with you, rekindling a connection. Keep in mind the South Node is about our past. Mercury is about our communications, but it's also early education as well, and it can be somebody from your early education coming into contact with you. So, and it might be a time where some people may be losing, maybe some, especially like an older person, maybe losing some ability to communicate or speak when they have this transit. Taurus might be, maybe there might be more stuttering in some cases if this transit is in Taurus. The thing is, it's just something, or if it's in Pisces, it might be where the speaking becomes really, unclear, or it's real garbled or hard to understand. This is so there's a lot of ways. I mean, this could manifest and pan out for people. So anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment. Until next time, people. Edwin Learnard saying, stay well.